Hi, my name is Beyond, and welcome back or welcome to my writing channel. So, if you're new here, hello. I am a I'm trying to be an author. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm writing my book right now, and I am trying to get a following so people might want to read it. So if you're interested in hearing about my stuff, or, I just I upload weekly readings. Weekly, not really weekly. I try to upload them, where like a little snippets of my writing. They're not meant to be good because they're written in a short time frame, but that kind of thing. So yeah. So if you're new, yay, welcome. Consider staying if you'd like. However, don't stay for this one because this is a two-parter. This one is part 2 to a history lesson that I am doing. So if you want, watch part 1 first. I will link that somewhere. Probably in the description, or I don't know. There's like this little thing over here. I don't know if it's over here, but I'm probably not gonna do that. But anyway, yeah. So if you want to know about the history of my book and the history in it, not how I started writing it, that kind of thing, definitely check that out. And if you're not interested in history, I have other videos too. Check them out. And if you're not new, well, you just listened to a minute and 30-second spiel of me talking to new people. So hi, welcome back. This is literally part 2 to what you just watched, if you watched it first. And so we're back. We just talked about the term human and how it is derogatory. Again, my computer's still here because I can't remember my own history. All of this is mostly written in the prologue, as I've said before, but I talk fast and people might not remember. So this one, as I said literally just now, will be shorter because, yeah. So, because I'm just going off a bullet point, so I'm just kind of like, So anyway, the reason why they wanted to separate ability users and humans, I'm going to just call them humans because that's just easier for me to do that, is because eventually after the war, the two were segregated. Think like, I don't even want to think about it. It's so horrible, but they were segregated. So, yes. So, like, it's like the same thing, like ability users, like they had their own, like, houses and apartment complexes and like schools and like bathrooms, like all of that, just to separate the two because they didn't want them intermingling. They, as in like the government and like whoever was in charge, were both like, yeah, no. Like if you got married, that was illegal. If you had children, that was very illegal. Because if you have a kid with an ability user and you're a human, very likely that kid will have an ability, and that's seen as wrong. So honestly, ability users were just seen as wrong. So even though they have a peace agreement, they still didn't like each other. Ability users didn't like humans either. They constantly were at odds. But of course, ability users were lesser than far between. Like lesser as in there weren't as many of them willing to fight because they just won a war. They just like the war just ended. A lot of people are hurt. A lot of people are dead, and they're like, they don't want to fight anymore, at least not right now. So a lot of them just kind of take it, but also a good chunk of them are like, this is not okay. This is not what we wanted. However, that kind of starts becoming more pushed towards in the 1900s because this segregation lasted for nearly 100 years. Like it was really bad and it was really long. But of course, so for the World War II and III, for this, which for us, me and you, is World War I and II, but this is 2 and 3 for them. They were drafted for it. For example, if they were in the U.S., they were drafted for the Vietnam War or whatever, or Korean or whatever, like all that stuff. They would be drafted, but they would be separated. They wouldn't be in the same division as the humans. So ability users, because of this, suffered a lot of violence. They suffered lynchings, which is basically just, if you don't know what a lynching is, that's Google is your friend. Or when it comes to lynching, maybe it's not, but like they struggled getting jobs. They verbally attacked, physically attacked, lynchings, like all that sort of stuff, it was not good, and it was not safe. And a lot of ability users were scared, even though they technically had the power to fight back very easily. They didn't, because they weren't gonna stoop low. A lot of them actually did fight. I'm not saying none of them did, but a good chunk of them were like, okay, this is not gonna help. But a lot of them, by just staying idle, didn't help either. So they started protesting. Of course, this was like the 50s, the 60s, protesting. And in 1965, segregation was overruled. It took a shit ton of time, a long time for that to happen. Now that I say it out loud, that was a long time to be segregated. It was a long time. Anyway, it was a long time for anyone to be segregated. I'm sorry. But yes, so 1965 was when segregation was overruled. In the same year, the VAs were made. So, sidebar. The VAs are basically V.A. You're not cool with your bike, dude. Okay. The VAs, of course, I'm sorry if you can hear that, were based off of Viktor Agapov. VA. I can't say my own character's name. VA. It's his initials, if you didn't know. And they're basically just a whole magical organization. They have a separate government, they have a separate police, they have a different court system. Like, for example, if you are an ability user and it's just like ability on ability crime, you're gonna go to a VA court. Or if, for example, there was a crime and it was like, even if it was like an ability user on a human, or a human on an ability user, the VA police will also be involved. So this will be a human police and a VA police. They will usually work together, but that kind of thing. And so government, they did have a separate government. However, the two governments, human and ability, work together, because you can't just have two different laws and stuff like that. That's not how that works. So they work together, but the VAs are typically separated. Today, is not derogatory. That's how people usually want it. But they work together, but they're also separate. Now, for example, if presidencies like the U.S. or Japan or wherever, like there has to be a set number of ability users appointed to the council, the house, or whatever. The thing that you don't vote on, they have to have a certain amount of ability users or humans, because if it's an ability user as a president, and they have to have humans there too. They can't just have all ability users. It goes both ways. But the rule was originally made because of human presidents. Those were the ones that were originally typically voted for back in the 1900s, early 2000s. Those were the ones who were voted for. And so that's why that law was made. It also, so the VAs also, it's okay. So the VAs, for them, it took a while for them to be accepted. It was like the late 70s. It took a while because they were kind of just a small organization at the time, and they were just like a group, really. And it eventually did bloom into a whole court system and everything else, for example. Excuse me. So it originally was like a group of ability users. I have ability, it doesn't sound like a word anymore. And then it blossomed into like an actual legitimate organization, and it took a while for that to happen. And even when it did happen, it took a while for them to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna actually trust that. Late 70s. They've been around for years. And as such, when the VAs became appointed, like an actual legitimate thing, they started to make laws for ability users. They did this because they didn't trust humans to make the laws. Originally, there were laws that humans have made, and a lot of them were like, hey, you can't use your power at all. So, yeah, that's how it's going to work. The VAs changed that, especially because voting, they were allowed to vote around this time. So they were like, okay, we're going to vote that this law will be passed, and it did pass, so great. So they're allowed to use their abilities in public and stuff like that. Of course, very limited, because depending on the ability, you don't want that to be used outside, but you're not, even in your home, when the ability, like when a human's made the law, you couldn't even use it in your house. Of course, now you can use it in your house. It doesn't matter. Like, no one's there. No one can get hurt but yourself or your family. But you know how to use it because they teach you how to use it. It's mandatory for every ability user once discovered, or like once they like know that they have an ability. It takes they are put into training so they don't hurt themselves or anyone else, and they can control it properly. That's why it's there. So yeah, so they made new laws. Some were more lenient. Some were banned, not banned, but like barred, like from like major use. For example, time travelers. I talked about this in my ability user video, so if you haven't seen that, go watch it after this. I think it's actually a really good idea to watch it after this. But if you haven't seen it, time travelers, it's complicated, but they are not able to use their power without VA permission, like at all. So it's very, yeah, it's very, very strict. So, and really after this, it was perfectly fine. The VAs were doing good. Ability users were kind of like, getting used to being, like, ability users and humans were kind of used to get being with each other. And it was definitely, like, it was very nice. People started getting married, having children. Then this is kind of like bloomed with the branches of abilities. The branches have been around since the war, but so I don't even know why I said that anyway. But like, yeah, this is kind of like when we start to learn more about ability users, and like we kind of like don't hate them anymore, of course. So of course this also means like if we're gonna have a war and there's a draft, they will be together. They're not gonna be separated, and that kind of thing. It's fine. It's all good. At least until 2084. That's when shit goes down. And I'm not going to tell you about it because that's something you get to learn when you read it. So, yeah, you get to read that in 2084. You'll know. So the book is set in 2102, just for context. So that's why it's been a while since all this happened. But, yeah, shit goes down in 2084. And you don't get to know. And I do. So that was it. We're literally 2 minutes less than the other one, but whatever, it's fine. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again later. Yeah. Bye.